All right. Vicki, great to have you here. Maybe we can have you begin with your introduction, however you want to introduce your business in, let's make 30 to 60 seconds, something about your ideal client perhaps, and what do you love doing with them?
Yeah, awesome, George. So my business is Transcending Limits, and I'm a life and business coach. So I work with people kind of where business development meets personal development, or maybe backwards, personal development meets business development. So my ideal client is women who are in the process of creating something in their life. Most often that is developing a business, but it could just be really owning their voice more and living their life to its fullest. And most of my network of women that I work with come from some background of codependency. Maybe they have a family member who's had addiction issues, experienced depression, things like that, where they've really been overgiving and pouring into all the people around them. And they're now realizing that they need to invest back in themselves and to really create and live at this, more higher fulfilled potential of their lives.
That's great. And if you can think of one of the clients you've worked with, maybe tell us a bit about what brought that client to you. Was there some event in her life or some issue that just kind of got to be too much for her that she said, I really need coaching around this? Tell us a bit of a story.
Yeah, I think that pain motivates us to action and
Yeah.
discomfort motivates us to action, which I think is what right now why the world needs us coaches, those people who are light workers and doing things. That's why we're needed so much in the world right now, because there's so many people in pain. But I can think of, in particular, someone who owns a restaurant and a business, a strong, independent woman on the outside, but on the inside, her world's falling apart, her relationships are falling apart. And she knows she's not reaching her potential, and she wants to be able to do that. And another woman who, has this addiction history, and with her husband and her kids are following in that same footsteps, and more than anything she wants to be able to know how to rise above that for herself and then help other people who are doing that same thing. But they each recognize that before they can go on and fulfill their greatest potential, they have to resolve these things within themselves in that growth process.
What is one of the key maybe insights or maybe it's a myth? Like, have you noticed something when clients come to you, or clients or your audience, that it's like people let's talk about the myth. Like, is there something that people believe or don't even realize they believe that is,
Well,
yeah.
one of the most key things is they believe that if they can just help the people around them enough,
Mm.
then they're going to
Wow.
get it figured out. And it's one of the key things that we have to pause and do is turn it inward and say, if we can't give something that we don't have. And so first priority is learning that self-care, that behavior that fills us up and honors us before we can extend that light out into the world.
That's wonderful. And when you are working with clients, have you noticed, is there some um, like aha moment they've had? Like, maybe you could tell us a little bit, maybe some story you remember recently, like, oh yeah, this person really needed to remember something or to do something.
I think it's the aha moments come when they get enough awareness that they can see the patterns
Mm.
that they've had in their lives that have led them to the places they don't want to be. And then they can even, like a very recent client, she was starting into that pattern again, but stopped and recognized it. And with that awareness, now she gets to make different choices and have different outcomes. And I think that awareness is so powerful because it's what helps us to create the next levels of change.
Mm. And when clients work with you, what would you say is one of your strengths that they most appreciate?
Well, almost every client tells me what a calming presence I am. And listening, just to be able to listen and hear them and meet them where they are, and then to be able to shift them from that space where they don't want to be, and through the tools and that I've learned and developed to be able to shift them to this more positive space where they can actually own their own gifts and talents, and move to that space where they can re-energize, connect with that hope, that vision of what they want.
Yeah. And maybe you could tell us about one of the tools that you love using. So
Yeah,
give us a sense of what the process would be if a client were to work with you.
sure. One of the tools that I love using is I'm a practitioner for neuro-linguistic programming. And for those of you who don't know what neuro-linguistic programming is, it's the science of how the brain stores things in images. So anytime that we've had an experience in the past, the brain will have stored that in some way, some information. So even as we're talking now, if I would ask you to go back and remember, what's your best vacation that you had been on? What was your absolute best vacation or family memory? All of a sudden, right, an image pops up in your mind. And just like the brain does that for positive things, it does that for negative things, and it hooks to it. And until we shift that picture, we can continue to repeat some old patterns. So NLP uses those tools to bring those pictures forward. What many times the clients don't even realize that picture was there, but they can bring it forward and then see that through a series of processes, shift it into a new picture. And it really gives their operating system, their brain, a new picture to work from. Really just upgrades, kind of like we upgrade our apps on our cell phone. It upgrades that memory so that we now work from a different space from it. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's very cool. And is there another tool that you want to mention that you love using?
I love using, there's some cognitive behavior, some tools around just a positive psychology. The science of happiness is one that I really work with people on, in moving up the emotional scale, and what's going to make you happier in this moment. We don't have to go from unhappy to happy, but what's going to make you one notch happier, and teaching them how to always think about that and move themselves up to be their own best resource for change.
That's great. Kathy asks, this sounds like a powerful way to change intrusive thoughts. Is that true?
It can be, yeah. And tying those things back to the thoughts that come and what's the underlying belief underneath that, because it's the root of the belief that allows the thought to spiral up. And so sometimes that process might be, when I'm working with a client, it could be an NLP process that helps them to do that quickly, or it might just be a physical, like 4-step process of looking at, like, what's the belief behind this, and then what would I rather believe instead, and then claiming that new belief in its place.
And how do clients work with you? Do they see you a couple times a month? What's the process you recommend?
Yeah, I typically work with them 3 times a month, and either 3 or 6 months increments, because the work that we're doing is building emotional intelligence, and it's not work that is done overnight. And sometimes when I'm doing a exploratory call with a new person, they get like so much insight from that first call that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm fixed, I don't need this anymore. And so then it takes, so that's the power that they can have in one session. But unless we have to continue to reinforce those new things and dive deeper. The Eiffel Tower is just a huge metaphor for my business, because it's as you want to build your tower upwards in the outer world, you have to build that foundation down even deeper. And in times like this where there's uncertainty around us, it's kind of hitting against how deep our foundation is. And even for me, it's causing me to say, okay, I need to let go of some things, some rocks that need chucked out of so I can dig my foundation even deeper. And so the deeper we do that internal work, then the more beautiful we're able to grow whatever it is in the world on the external that we're working to grow.
Yeah. Let's see here. A question here from Rochelle. What do you like thinking about the pathway that people get to you to become clients? Do you prefer to have some kind of online event that they attend, or they should read some blog posts? What pathway do you most prefer? Or maybe it's all the above, but I know you have some online events that you do. Maybe you want to talk a bit about that.
So thanks to George's recommendation, I've been doing the free online classes, and that's been really powerful for me in referrals. I've had a couple people who just really referred a number of other people into those classes. And what I find is it's attracting the exact audience of people that I wanted to. So that is one way.
And what are some of the topics of your online events, or do you have anything coming up that you'd like to share?
Yes, actually I have one coming up tomorrow evening. It's just going to be a 1-session, 90-minute class on mindfulness in a fearful world. And ironically, I had it scheduled with that title before this whole event unfolded. So I'd love to invite anybody who wants to participate with that. It is a free class already, so I'd love for you to join as well. And
what are some potential topics coming up for you that you might do?
Yeah, so one of the things I've really tried to do is not get into planning ahead too far, because as we're learning, and we want to meet the people where they're at.
Yeah.
And so each of my topics for the next class has really come out of the previous class. Like, what are people saying that they want to hear and want to see? And so that's where the mindfulness topic came from. And then again, at the end of that class, I'm going to be checking in to see what, especially given the uncertainty in the world right now, like what is it that people really need and want right now?
Great. And you've got some questions here about sharing that link in the Zoom chat. And of course, I'm sure you'll have it in the notes of the video when you upload this later. So thank you so much, Vicki.
You're welcome.